Grace. Please know that you are my hope. Never forget that.
What are you talking about?
Just... I love you.
I love you too.
Okay.
Mom, I'm scared.
No. We need to find a way out of here now.
But we don't have any of our stuff.
We can come back for it later, Grace.
Requiem is new entry in the principal series of our beloved Resident Evil franchise. And with it comes a character most people never expected to matter in a mainline Resident Evil game. Grace Ashcroft, an FBI technical analyst whose story starts long before she ever touched a federal database, with the death of her mother, Alyssa Ashcroft. Alyssa comes from Resident Evil Outbreak and Outbreak File 2. Two games that I really hope it could have a remake. If you don't know them, it's probably because you were too young when they came out on the PlayStation 2 on the early 2000s. Resident Evil Outbreak had an online co-op focused campaign, which a few people enjoyed around the world, because the internet was not a common thing when it released. On today's story, you will learn about Alyssa and Grace Ashcroft and how they got involved. Most players will meet Grace Ashcroft for the first time in Resident Evil 9, Requiem as an FBI technical analyst caught in a new biohazard and in the unsolved murder of her mother. But Requiem isn't pulling Grace out of nowhere. She's not a random new face in a long-running series. Grace is the continuation of a story that started decades ago in the Arklay Mountains in the streets of Raccoon City. Resident Evil Outbreak and Outbreak File 2 were clunky, punishing multiplayer survival horror experiments. They barely explained themselves. They kinda frustrated players. And then, they kinda were ignored. But while Outbreak was never about saving the world, it was about something Resident Evil often leaves in the background: the civilians who survived long enough to live with the consequences. Among them, Alyssa Ashcroft, a journalist who stood in Umbrella's shadow before the mansion incident, survived the Raccoon City outbreak, helped spark the Raccoon Trials, sniffed around the Baker family years before Resident Evil 7, and finally died investigating the Renwood Hotel, the very case Grace will inherit in Requiem. If you want to understand who Grace really is, and why Requiem matters, you need to understand the mother the series almost forgot. If you're into this kind of lore, the forgotten survivors, the newspaper clippings, the side games that secretly hold the keys to the main story, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It costs nothing, but it helps a lot to push these deep dive stories to more people, and it tells me you want more videos connecting things like Outbreak, Requiem, and the stranger corners of Resident Evil. Now, let's wind the clock back. Before Raccoon City burned, before Dulvey, before Grace. Let's meet the woman who started it all. Alyssa Ashcroft was born in the 1970s and grew up in Raccoon City, a town whose beating heart was the Umbrella Corporation. But Alyssa didn't grow up into a soldier, a scientist. She became a reporter. More specifically, an investigative reporter, which already tells you almost everything about her priorities. She didn't choose journalism for the money. She chose it because she had an instinct for finding trouble. And in Raccoon City, trouble was basically a weekday. Alyssa didn't chase feel-good stories or ribbon-cutting ceremonies. She went after corruption, corporate misconduct, and any situation where the official explanation sounded a little too confident. In a city where Umbrella was the major employer, that instinct put her in dangerous territory almost immediately. And in 1993, Alyssa walked into her first true horror story. At the time, she was working with another journalist named Kurt. The two were chasing a rumor, the kind of story that starts with vague complaints, nervous sources, and people insisting that everything is perfectly legal. The rumor centered on a remote hospital in the Arklay Mountains. Something felt wrong. Patients were being treated off the books. Records didn't match outcomes, and unfortunate complications were happening far too often. They weren't imagining it. Behind the scenes, the hospital's director, Albert Lester, had begun taking bribes from an umbrella researcher named Greg Mueller. In exchange, Lester allowed Mueller to illegally test an experimental virus on terminal cancer patients, quietly, discreetly, and without oversight. And it wasn't just professional corruption, it was personal. Lester's wife, Dorothy, was terminally ill and receiving care at that very hospital. Out of desperation, Lester agreed to include her in the trials, hoping the experimental virus would do what conventional medicine couldn't. At first, it looked like a miracle. Dorothy and several other patients seemed to recover. Symptoms vanished, conditions stabilized. For a brief moment, it felt like Umbrella had finally done something good. Then reality caught up. One by one, the patients began to die. Dorothy didn't die. She changed. She mutated uncontrollably, losing her humanity and becoming something far more dangerous. Chaos erupted inside the hospital. Whatever had been hidden behind paperwork and bribes suddenly became impossible to ignore. That's when Alyssa and Kurt arrived to investigate, completely unaware of what they were walking into. Almost immediately, Dorothy attacked. She grabbed Kurt and killed him on the spot, infecting him right in front of Alyssa. No warning, no build-up, just sudden violence. And the realization that this story had crossed into something much worse than corruption. Alyssa tried to flee. She didn't get far. She was captured by Greg Mueller, who understood exactly how dangerous a living witness could be. And here, Umbrella doesn't reach for a bullet. It reaches for something quieter. Instead of killing her, which could raise questions, Alyssa is subjected to a procedure designed to suppress her memories. Not erase her completely, not rewrite her. Just bury those memories deep enough that she can't expose what she saw. The hospital incident is covered up. The deaths are explained away. The paperwork is sanitized, and Alyssa Ashcroft walks out alive, with no clear memory of why her case ended so abruptly. Umbrella didn't silence her voice. They silenced her past. For years, Alyssa keeps working, never realizing how close she'd come to the truth that would one day consume an entire city. After surviving the Arklay hospital incident and losing both her partner and her memory of what really happened, Alyssa does the one thing Umbrella probably didn't expect. She keeps going. She continues her journalism career, moving from case to case, following stories that sit just outside the public eye. Eventually, her work leads her back to the Arklay Mountains. She writes about a man's body pulled from a nearby river, a death that on paper looks unfortunate, but ordinary. The kind of thing that gets filed away and forgotten. In reality, it's anything but ordinary. The killing is the work of Albert Lester, the former hospital director who's completely unraveled after losing his wife and his life's work. With nothing left, Lester retreats into the mountains, roaming the area like a low-budget true crime documentary monster. Except this time, reality is cheaper and much crueler. He becomes a serial killer, attacking and murdering anyone who wanders too close. A walking consequence of Umbrella's abandoned experiments and moral shortcuts. and without realizing it, Alyssa has once again walked straight into his path. This is exactly where Resident Evil Outbreak File 2 picks up her story, dragging her back into the fallout of a case she was never supposed to remember. Then the calendar flips to 1998, the year Raccoon City vanishes from the map. So let's talk about the events of Resident Evil Outbreak. We start at Jay's bar. Alyssa's on her laptop, working. Zombies crash through the door. Our survivors run, meet some RPD officers. Everything goes badly. Alyssa fixes a detonator, blows up a massive horde, drives away, and calmly journals about it like it was a rough day at the office. Next, she somehow ends up in Umbrella's underground lab. An evil Umbrella researcher tries to escape with a freaky G-virus baby. Alyssa kills a suspicious plant. She defeats it by ramming a cart into it and escapes. Then we have Raccoon General Hospital, where a leech-based murder creature trying to kill everyone. They fight through, kill suspicious monster number 2, escape through the sewers. And Alyssa notes that normally she'd love all these scoops, which feels optimistic under the circumstances. Next is the Apple Inn, which catches fire. They run, they fight suspicious monster number 3, they escape. The final scenario of File 1 is at Raccoon University. Here, Greg Mueller returns. Yes, the same man who suppressed Alyssa's memories in 1993. Alyssa finds an antiviral called Daylight, synthesizes it, confronts Mueller, and watches him get killed by Nikolai Zinoviev from Resident Evil 3. She cures herself, kills the tyrant, and escapes Raccoon City by helicopter. Resident Evil Outbreak. File number 2, or Outbreak 2 if you wish, piles on 5 more scenarios. Raccoon City Zoo, infected animals everywhere, from elephants to toucans. Subway station, Arklay Cabin and Hospital. This is the important one. In that Arklay scenario, Alyssa meets Albert Lester again, though her memory is still suppressed, so she doesn't recognize him. He leads the group back to the old hospital to feed them to a giant plant creature he believes is his wife, Dorothy. Inside that nightmare, Alyssa's memories start to come back. She remembers Kurt, she remembers the case, she remembers Umbrella. Alyssa kills the plant, and everyone escapes the collapsing hospital. Then there's a scenario at an RPD station, filling in details about Marvin Branner. The injured officer Claire and Leon meet in Resident Evil 2. You survive until help arrives, leave Marvin behind, and his story picks up where you already know it. Finally, in an Umbrella development facility, one researcher and a researcher try to control a tyrant with a remote. The tyrant helps for about 5 minutes, then kills the guy with the remote. You run, fight yet another giant BOW, and the city gets bombed. Through all of this, Alyssa Ashcroft survives the Raccoon City outbreak, and that survival leads directly to everything that comes next, including Grace. In the aftermath of Raccoon City, Alyssa does what she always did best. She writes. She publishes an exposé condemning Umbrella, titled "What is a Bee?" In that article, she details her experiences during the outbreak, openly accuses Umbrella of developing and deploying bioorganic weapons, BOWs, and crucially, puts into writing what the US government did not want written down. The article gains attention. The public starts asking questions, and the US government finds itself in a rapidly escalating legal conflict with Umbrella over the destruction of Raccoon City during the sterilization operation. This snowballs into what becomes known as the Raccoon Trials, is increasingly treated as sensational, exaggerated, even conspiratorial. For years, public opinion on BOWs hovers in a gray area between reality and urban legend. Even after later bioterror incidents, Alyssa's reporting and the testimony of other raccoon survivors are still often dismissed as paranoia or misinformation. During this time, Alyssa keeps doing what she does, pushing to expose corruption wherever she can. She also raises a daughter, Grace Ashcroft, a girl who grows up watching her mother fight a war of information against companies and governments that would rather pretend monsters don't exist. Grace eventually pursues a career in federal law enforcement. This is where Alyssa quietly reappears in a place most people never thought to look. If you played Resident Evil 7, Biohazard, there's a good chance you missed it. It's not a cutscene. It's not highlighted. It's absolutely not treated like a big deal. In 2016, an article appears in the Dulvey Daily, a small local newspaper outside Dulvey Parish, discussing a string of mysterious disappearances over the previous 2 years. No monsters mentioned, no biohazards confirmed, just people vanishing. It's tied, of course, to the Baker family incident, and if you stop and actually read the byline, there's a moment where everything clicks. The article is written by Alyssa Ashcroft. Decades after Raccoon City, Alyssa is still doing the exact same thing, documenting strange patterns, following disappearances, and writing about incidents that don't have official explanations. That Dulvey article ends up being one of the only public records acknowledging something went wrong there at all. It's a lone breadcrumb suggesting a biological disaster long before Ethan Winters ever sets foot on the Baker property. The region is quarantined. The situation is covered up. The investigation stops. The missing people Alyssa wrote about are never officially acknowledged. 2 years later, in 2018, she follows another thread, an investigation centered on the Renwood Hotel. After decades of outbreaks, cover-ups, quarantines, and articles vanishing from the public record, this is the case she doesn't walk away from. Alyssa Ashcroft is murdered while investigating the Renwood Hotel. The case is never solved publicly, just another ghost file. 8 years later, her daughter, Grace Ashcroft, picks up where her mother left off. She opens the Renwood Hotel file again. She starts asking the questions Alyssa never got to finish. What exactly happened in that hotel? Who killed her mother? And what kind of horror was important enough to silence a journalist who survived Raccoon City, the Raccoon Trials, and Dulvey? This is Resident Evil 9, Requiem. About Requiem, the real questions become: what did Alyssa find in the Renwood Hotel? Who decided she knew too much? And how far will Grace go to pull her mother's truth back out of the dark? We only have a little longer before we find out. See you in the next story.